our program director, MEC of Limpopo, Economic Development, Environment and Tourism, Mr. Thabo Makone, members of the Royal House and Amakosi present here today, the acting executive mayor of Vhembe District Municipality, Councillor Anderson Mudunungu, and council members present, the acting mayor of the Thulemela Municipality, Councillor Kunda, the chairperson of the board of the South African National Biodiversity Institute, Professor Nesamvumi, the CEO of SANBI, Mr. Shonisani Munjetsi, officials from government entities, academics from various institutions of learning, community members who have graced this occasion, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, Ndi Machalone. It gives me very great pleasure to greet you all in these beautiful surrounds for the historic launch of Limpopo's first National Botanical Garden here in Thohoyandou on International Biodiversity Day. We are particularly honored by the presence of the Mapapule Royal Council and the Mapapule Development Trust, as well as members of the royal family and esteemed members of surrounding communities. Ladies and gentlemen, today we join countries around the world in celebrating the International Day for Biological Diversity, for which the theme is building a shared future for all life. Conservation of our rich biodiversity is a foundation on which we can build a better and more sustainable world for future generations. By restoring ecosystem services and creating natural spaces such as this new garden, we are assisting in reducing greenhouse gas emissions from the atmosphere and in the process mitigating the consequences of climate change. Conserving and restoring ecosystems such as wetlands, rivers and catchments can reduce the disastrous impacts of extreme weather events, including floods and droughts. The 6th assessment report of the Intergovernmental Report on Climate Change tells us, as we can see today, ladies and gentlemen, with this dramatic rain in May, that climate change is already part of our lives, and that climate-induced disasters are the most significant threat to people, economies, and the natural world today. South Africa, as a developing country, hopes to rely on our rich biodiversity to help us in our battle against the evils of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Our country is a signatory to the United Nations Convention on Biodiversity. The post-biodiversity framework, which will be considered in Kunming, China in September this year, has 3 aspects: conservation, sustainable use, and equitable community beneficiation. Our cabinet has already endorsed these 3 principles because they are in line with our domestic policies and legislation. It is therefore important that we look to a nature-based future as we keep in mind the interaction between people, the environment, and all species. This includes challenging the belief that scientific and technical means of conserving biological conservation is better than traditional knowledge historically used by communities to sustainably use and protect biological resources they have been using for food, medication, and other purposes for generations. By enhancing conservation of our rich biological diversity, we can not only reduce poverty and speed up development, but we can also empower our communities to share traditional knowledge with businesses through access and benefit sharing agreements and contribute to capacity building while raising awareness of the traditional knowledge in biodiversity conservation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the National Botanical Gardens expansion strategy aims to firstly establish at least one botanical garden in each province, secondly, to ensure that all biomes are represented in the establishment of new gardens, and lastly, to expand existing gardens, as we have done recently with the Harold Porter Botanical Garden in the Western Cape. During my budget address in the National Assembly this week, I told members of Parliament that in an effort to create more work opportunities for local communities living adjacent to protected areas and to support small and medium enterprises, the department itself will invest more in the protection and conservation of natural resources. Through a partnership this year with SANParks, Sanbi and Isimangaliso, we will create 8,300 work opportunities through our natural resource management portfolio, which clears invasive species, restores degraded dryland and wetland areas, and of course this project will include the necessary training to move ahead. Here in Thohoyandou, we do aim to create through this project at least 200 temporary jobs that will be created through the establishment of this garden. We ourselves are investing 20 million from our environmental programs, and a further 20 million is being invested from the National Department of Tourism for garden development and tourism destination. So, Acting Mayor Kwenda, I hope you are pleased. We are already working together to do more. Ladies and gentlemen, the Thohoyandou National Botanical Garden is the 11th garden in our country. It represents the Soutpansberg mountain bushveld, which is a vulnerable vegetation type of which only 2.2% is currently conserved. Now, it is fitting today that I acknowledge the role that various departments have played in bringing us to this historic occasion. First, I must thank the foresight and forward thinking of the Mapapule community under the leadership of His Royal Highness Tovela Mapapule. Much of the land comprising this garden was originally taken from the community by the previous order and included in a botanical garden. The community has chosen to settle their claim through financial compensation and allow the land to remain used for conservation purposes. We thank the Mapapule families for that decision. Secondly, my thanks go to MEC Mokoni, who has handed over the Provincial Botanical Garden to the South African National Biodiversity Institute and given us a basis to establish these gardens. Thirdly, Let me thank the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure that is working with us investing the gardens. A very big thank you today goes to the Department of Tourism for the significant financial contribution towards boosting infrastructure development in the garden. Esteemed dignitaries, I must also thank the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development and the Chief Land Claims Commissioner for successfully navigating the land claim process that allowed us to gather today. Ladies and gentlemen, this botanical garden is a biodiversity center for the province, showcasing